welcome to the PocketGamer.biz podcast, Week in Mobile Games, where we discuss the week's news and provide some insights. I'm Craig Chapple, head of content at PocketGamer.biz. With me as ever is our news editor Aaron Astle. How you doing, Aaron? What's up?
Hello. Yeah, doing all right, thank you. Better than last week. For any of our regulars, I was just getting over a cold, so I'm currently in that kind of phase where you're like, I'm going to appreciate feeling well. I'm going to really make an effort to remember like how bad I felt last week
before you take it for granted again.
Yeah, and then within a couple of days you stop doing that. But yeah.
Is there anything interesting?
Yeah, so
now
that I'm feeling a bit better. So I was actually in London a couple of days ago for an Attack on Titan orchestra concert, which was very cool. And that I bought what you can see behind me here for our YouTube viewers. It's kind of, I'll try not to let it fall apart now, but like sort of swords and the Scouts logo for any audio listeners.
So for people that haven't seen the show, those are the weapons that they carry to effectively defeat the giants.
Yeah. So the concert was really good. It was a couple of hours, and they kind of did it in two halves. The first half was kind of series 1 to 3 music, and they had a big like almost cinema screen above the orchestra showing like visuals from the show. So you kept kind of getting drawn to that, and then it's like, well, I'm here to look at the orchestra, and then you kind of look back at the people playing, and then slowly look back up at the screen again. But yeah, the first half was sort of series 1 to 3, and then they had an intermission and did series 4 and kind of the finale stuff afterwards, because they kind of intentionally, the show kind of went in a different direction with the music at that point and the visuals, and to try and make it a bit distinct. So it was good that they split it up with the intermission rather than just chop and change at random. But no, really enjoyed it. The only downside was just as we left, basically next door there was an Oasis concert that finished at the same time. So our two events combined into one massive queue trying to get back to like the underground train, which wasn't ideal, but I've made it back, as you can
see. You made it. Yeah, there's a long walk.
Yeah.
Awesome. For me, I am currently, as Aaron pointed out before we started, currently it's just a white background. So I've gone from one bland background to another, an even worse one that I could find. I'm currently, I was going to turn the camera. I'm currently in an Airbnb in Liverpool to see family. Unfortunately, one of my family members is very unwell at the moment, so I'm here to help them. Hopefully, I'll still be in Helsinki next week. As possibly I won't be at the moment. We will see if I am there. I look forward to seeing you all at the show. If I'm not, have a fantastic one. Yeah, I was going to turn the camera, then I thought the person probably doesn't want me showing their home to the hundreds of thousands of listeners.
Yeah, it's free advertising.
It's free advertising of their stuff. So yeah, I'm up here. There's a couple of things this week. A bit addicted to, particularly last few days because I've been traveling. It's actually New York Times games. People that play it, I actually signed up a while back because interesting that they moved one of the games called the Mini, which is a mini crossword. It's like easier to do than the other ones, which I'm terrible at. And so with my friends, because we're sad, we meet up once a week, and for like a couple of minutes we'll play through some of these games. And the Mini was like a really good one, and they put that behind the paywall. So things like Strands, Wordle, and Connections, you can play for free without having an account. The Mini, they actually paywalled it. So we should actually look if there was a sudden pay spike in NYT games because of that, because I ended up subscribing because they had a deal on at the same time, which is really interesting. And I can't remember how much it was, right? It was like a couple of pounds, like a month. It works out basically, which is kind of nothing in the grand scheme of things for something of quite joy. So I caved immediately. I wasn't like, how dare you? Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of that. So I'm going to go into quickly a few shout outs, and then we'll jump into apparently there was a fairly big story this week that I guess we should discuss. But yeah, coming up next week is Pocket Gamer Connects Helsinki, October 7th and 8th. After that, we've got Pocket Gamer Connects Summit Korea on October 31st. We've got PGC Aqaba November 8th and 9th. And in January, we'll have PGC London January 19th, 20th, the big one. Also, we got the top 50 coming next week as well. That's all set to go. So that'll be announced at Pocket Gamer Connect Helsinki. So please, if you want to see it all live or discuss a certain week's news that we're going to mention in a minute, then yeah, definitely head to that show. So, onto the news. The big story of the week, and it was teased. There was a report the week before. I think it came out after we recorded last week's podcast, the report, that EA was set for a buyout to go private, and as of Monday, it was official. EA is going to be acquired for $55 billion. So that will be the second largest ever games deal behind Activision Blizzard. And it's going to be bought by an investor consortium that comprises of Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners in an all-cash deal. So Silver Lake and Affinity Partners are US firms. Silver Lake is a private equity firm, as is Affinity Partners. Affinity Partners, interestingly, I can go into it a bit, but has strong ties to Saudi Arabia as well. So this is really, it would appear, this is really a Saudi Arabia-driven acquisition. And I believe it was Eric Kress from Gossamer Consulting, the Structural Fund. When it was just a report, before it was officially announced, his opinion was that this is kind of, the Silver Lake is like the US face of the deal. But it's also worth noting that because if Affinity Partners is involved, they're also very much a US face, because who's that run by? Jared Kushner, which is Donald Trump's son-in-law, married to his daughter, Ivanka Trump. And so is there going to be any issues with regulatory hurdles? Very extremely unlikely when Donald Trump is president. I would be curious, even if he wasn't president, whether there would be a particular issue, because it is a foreign power acquiring a major US company in a major deal. So the consortium will purchase 100% of EA, with PIF rolling over PIF already owned 9.9% of EA, and that'll just roll over into this. EA shareholders will receive $210 per share, which is said to represent a 25% premium. The acquisition will be made up of an equity investment of approximately $36 billion and $20 billion of debt financing, $18 billion of which is expected to be funded at close. Andrew Wilson is expected to remain as CEO, and the company will continue to be headquartered in Redwood City, California, which I thought was interesting that they would have to say that. You know, when it's like, if you have to say it, I'd be shocked if it ever moved. But naturally, from this deal, there will be, I would imagine there will be an office that now opens in Saudi Arabia. And my prediction is that they'll move they'll move EA under the Savvy Games Group banner at some point in the future, near or long term. Savvy Games Group is obviously their games company, the games firm that has, helped me out, Aaron, $38 billion to spend on games, or had, and then they've spent that on Scopely, $4.9 billion, which actually turns out to be a pretty good deal, because that was just before, I think, Monopoly Go launched. So that's obviously done gangbusters, and then Scopely itself bought Niantic. Savvy's also got interest in esports, the ESL Faceit group, which it merged together. Overall, that cost about $1.5 billion to host the Esports World Cup. So, massive deal. It's expected to close Q1 of the 2027 financial year, subject to regulatory approval. I don't think that'll be an issue. So I guess a few things about it. One of my theories is that, I guess it was bought because it's kind of if you've got all that money and you're Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, and you're trying to actually diversify your economy, but also you're expanding into games, maybe people have kind of speculated it's also a cultural thing. So it's like a soft power. I guess EA is kind of a massive console publisher. It makes sense, right? And actually, EA makes sense from, I think, quite a few multiple points that Saudi Arabia has been investing heavily in. And that is obviously EA Sports, which a number of people in the industry have been saying that's probably the main reason to get acquired. So if you think of EA, I don't know why my brain struggles when it's not called FIFA anymore. I know it's
FC Mobile,
Sports,
FC Sports,
FC
Mobile.
EAFC Sports thing. It's ridiculous. I just can't handle the name change. So that's like a major IP, right? That would also actually quite naturally fit into it. I don't know how it would, but it naturally fit into like their esports initiatives. So maybe we'll see even further investments into that. So there may be leagues. You've got the World Cup. And then also, don't forget that Saudi Arabia has actually been investing very heavily in football anyway. So Saudi Arabia owns Newcastle United FC, PIF does, which is a top British football club. Um, they're like one of the, I'm trying to think, one of the top 5 or 10. I can't remember where they finished in the league last season. They're very, very good club. They invest a lot of money in that club. And also, very famously, they have their own Saudi Arabia Football League, where they've been splashing the cash to bring in football stars from around the world. One of those is Cristiano Ronaldo, who plays in the league, amongst quite many few others, and some top managers have gone there as well. Steven Gerrard was, or is still, I think, was a manager of one of the clubs, amongst other big names. And so I kind of wonder, is those all actually seem to tie quite well together, right? So you could I could easily imagine, I don't know if they do it already, to be honest, but I could easily imagine that there'll be more emphasis on Saudi Arabia league in Sports FC. And then I guess, what does it mean for everyone at EA? There was a statement, which was a letter to staff that EA released from the CEO, Andrew Wilson. He said the company's values will remain unchanged following the acquisition, which I'll be honest, I kind of scoffed at, because regardless of what you think of whoever bought it, and how much influence Saudis will really have, just simply going from a public company to a private company is surely going to change your culture and your values, because you're not chasing the quarterly earnings. You're not thinking, oh, we need to release this now to appease investors, or we need to announce that we're doing all this AI stuff so investors are happy and keep the share price up, etc. Don't have to do all that now, but the concern is it's the largest leveraged buyout in like history. So there's a lot of money to pay back, and it's kind of, I think Nicholas Lovell said, it's kind of a bit of a gamble on that the games market is mature and that EA is stable enough to kind of return that investment over time, so it won't decline. And maybe it's also a bit of an investment on, is there actually a growth opportunity, at least somewhat, in the future for EA, whether that's Battlefield 6 or growing their current brands. But good luck to the teams that are there. I hope it does mean that, because now you've got a sovereign wealth fund backing you, that, I guess I won't go into the politics of it all, but I do write about that a bit in one of our articles on the site, about who the new owners are. Because obviously there's I guess the nice way to put it is, there's a lot of controversies, right, around Saudi Arabia's kind of human rights record and other incidences. And then I guess the other question, which, Aaron, I think you can go into some detail here, then I'll add. The other question is, what are certain parts of the business not going to be viable in the future? Does the company get broken up a little bit? So is it going to be focused on sports? Is it going to be focused on everything, because they have very talented teams, and Saudi Arabia's PIF wants all of that to do whatever with? Or they'll just kind of, as people keep putting, right size it, so layoffs and closures. What does it all mean for their mobile business? So I guess, to get some color of the state of it, Aaron, you can give us a data store.
So I kind of looked at EA's mobile business from two angles, partly from looking at Magic estimates of kind of individual games, and then also looking back through the financial reports over the past sort of 5 years, just to give a bit of an idea of kind of where things are headed. So starting with the kind of Magic bit, games like Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, Golf Clash, and FC Mobile have kind of been the biggest in EA's mobile portfolio. Like, they've launched more than 50 games on mobile over the last decade, and then if you include Glue Mobile, which they acquired a few years ago, that number kind of rockets up into the hundreds of games. But yeah, those three I mentioned are the biggest. They've all made at least $1 billion, according to Magic estimates. That's from the Play Store and App Store. Currently, FC Mobile looks like it's the top performer of the three. It made 15 million in August, whereas Golf Clash made 8 million and Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes was 7.3. That's kind of in line with what EA's said in its financial reports. They've kind of highlighted FC Mobile quite a lot lately, just that it's doing well, although they don't really break down kind of how much individual mobile games make. They sometimes point out where something's doing particularly well. So they recently said that FC Mobile exceeded expectations in the previous fiscal year and had a 20% rise in daily active users. So you get kind of some insight.
They previously called it the blueprint for their mobile business, I think. Right?
And yeah, so going a bit more into kind of the broader mobile financials, kind of from their official numbers then. So most recently, you're in the 2025 fiscal year, which wrapped up in March this year, mobile generated 1.1 billion for EA in net revenue, equated to 15% of overall net revenue for the year, which is up kind of over 5 years. So looking back at financial year 21, mobile made about 718 million, and that was just shy of 13% of overall net revenue. So it has increased, quite considerably over that time, although it has peaked and is kind of on its way back down again to the 1.1 billion in the past year. So yeah, in like financial year 22, mobile was at 1.1 billion and 15% of net revenue, so the same as this year. But in financial year 2023, it went up to 1.3 billion or 17% of overall revenue, and that was kind of off the back of the acquisitions of Blue Mobile and Playdemic in the 2022 financial year. But yeah, since kind of 2024, it's been falling back down again. So last year was the second year of decline, and so it's still above where it was during the pandemic, but it is slowly going back down. And obviously EA's also shut down quite a lot of mobile games like EA Sports FC Empires and EA Sports UFC Mobile 2, Kim Kardashian Hollywood. There was a Lord of the Rings game. So I guess overall, the 15-ish% net revenue mark, it's not like it's irrelevant. It's not like it's 2 or 3%, but I think it's quite clear that that isn't why they've been acquired then for their mobile stuff. I think it's fair to say.
So my thought is that I'm not saying anything new here, but like EA's acquisition of Glue, which is why their mobile revenue went up, right? Is complete disaster. So they spent, and then they bought Playdemic and Golf Clash. It still does well. I think that's declined over time, but it's still, a money maker, right? But like the Glue Mobile one, you just look at it and think, what have you got left? There's design, home, and comfort fashion still out. I think pretty much everything else. They had a successful MLB franchise, which is sports. The perfect, sorry to use the word, it's not the perfect synergy, as they would say. And that just doesn't happen anymore. Like absolute train wreck of an acquisition. And I think in moving forward, if I was to look at why did these big publishers get into mobile, because it was kind of hedging a bit of a bet on they should expand across all platforms, even if they didn't actually in reality need to do that, and also appeasing investors a bit. I would say like that's kind of why Nintendo got into it, because the Wii U was a failure. They wanted to appease investors who kept saying, "You got to do this, got to do this." They just had a total failure of console. Switch comes out, and then they don't really care about mobile anymore. We'll go into that in a bit. A surprise launch after 5 6 years or something. I think with EA in future, I think there'll be much less emphasis on doing mobile, at least within EA's core business as has been acquired. So I mean, I guess I worry a bit about what that means to the mobile teams there. What do I know, right? But my prediction would be that the successful games, the teams could keep running those. That would be EA Sports FC Mobile, Star Wars Galaxy Heroes, Golf Clash. And then outside of probably those, maybe Design Home's fine. Outside of those, I think they won't really worry about it, so they'll probably start closing stuff. And I think any other mobile development, why not? Why wouldn't like maybe Scopely could take a look at, well, what do they want any of these parts of that business? Bring that under the Scopely brand, and then you could tap into any of EA's IPs if they wanted to. And then that's kind of the path forward, I think, for EA and mobile. And I think it'd just be Scopely led. Obviously, Scopely is under the Savvy brand, which is under the PIF brand. EA is not currently under the Savvy brand, but why wouldn't they just put all those parts together? So I think that's where that goes. So yeah, huge deal. Very important for the games industry what happens here, because ultimately that's thousands of people. It's one of the biggest names in gaming, and we don't want to see it fail, really. That's a massive piece of the industry. So wish everyone the best of luck there. I hope it all goes well. Right, so what else have you got?
Yes, so Genshin Impact has just celebrated its 5th anniversary on September 28th. So yeah, 5 years already since that came out, and obviously very quickly became a massive game. So kind of just in time for the 5th anniversary, they released version 6.0, which has kind of introduced new characters and a new setting. It's the 7th major region for the game, called like Nod Cry. So that's kind of going to be the main location for the next year of the game, I guess. The developers talked a little bit about it because I watched some of they kind of did a YouTube video going into it, talking about the design philosophy for this new area. And it was quite interesting. It seems like it's kind of aiming to fill in some of the gaps where they have designed previous things through the years, and then they kind of still have all their design document, but realised over time, I guess from fan speculation and things, that the players don't actually kind of know everything that they have kind of designed, because it didn't end up in the game, even though it was kind of there in references while they were designing things. So apparently, this new region, kind of part of the idea is for it to bring all the different factions together from the previous years of the game, and I guess answer some questions and bring some kind of loose threads together. So I guess that's probably quite interesting for people who are like invested in the lore. And then kind of getting into the financials of the game. So over these 5 years, AppMagic estimates suggest Genshin Impact's made at least 6.4 billion between the App Store and the Play Store, which obviously, a lot of money. It's bound to be a lot more than that when you include like alternative app stores and other platforms like PC and console, and Hoyoverse also has the web shop as well. So I think probably increasingly like spending's kind of moving there, I would say, in a broader sense. Don't know for Genshin Impact specifically. So that kind of makes looking at the annual revenue a bit of an asterisk on it, because we don't know kind of the web shop value. But according to spending on the App Store and the Play Store, at least, year 5 far and away has been the worst year for the game so far. It was pretty much bang on $500 million, which is crazy that is its worst year. Kind of year 1 and 2, it was on its way up towards like $2 billion. It's kind of declined every year since it's come out, and year 4 was the first time it fell below $1 billion, and then now it's at like $500 million. So it is definitely, I guess, losing steam at this point. But again, we don't know. Maybe it did outperform year 4 if you include all the web shop stuff, or and this is only mobile as well, so there could be other people moving to other platforms more. But at the same time, still a massive game. I think we covered on the podcast recently. I'd done kind of a genre-based data dive on the first half of this year, and like Genshin Impact was still up with Honkai Star Rail as like the other 2 biggest RPGs this year on mobile still. So although the revenue's kind of slipping, still it is still a massive title that clearly they're still investing in the same way, because they've done their usual annual update to keep people engaged in this new place for the next year.
I guess it's important to know that revenue has fallen and it's declined to a still very, very successful game. They obviously released Honkai Star Rail, very similar. Now they've got 7% Zero, so some of that cannibalized some of that revenue, so there's a decline there. There's still millions of people to play it. The community seem very active. I'm curious what the investment is that they put into the game now. So the rumor was it cost $100 million to make and $200 million a year to run. This was a few years ago. That was the rumor. And do they still do that? Do they still invest $200 million a year? Did they decrease that investment, or did that actually investment have to go up? So like, it'll still be profitable, but I'm not questioning that. But I'm just curious how much they still clearly put in an intense amount of updates to run that. I heard that a year or 2 ago, because it was like a developer and an investor was telling me they worked at Chinese companies, and they were just like, there's no way Western companies could compete with it, because you just can't. The money, amount of developers, etc. You just can't compete. Not to say, obviously, developers anywhere in the world can't be successful. They can. It was just their opinion. I thought it was interesting. I mean, I guess it's still going to be out there successful for years to come, right? It's not going anywhere. And they've announced their new game, which is very different. It's more like it looked more like a cozy game, wasn't it? Like farm.
Yeah, like I think it's a a life sim. They've said it's like Petite Planet.
Yeah. Life sim, right. So yeah, really interesting that direction.
Hmm. And yeah, obviously, I guess hard to kind of quantify the impact Genshin Impact's going to have had going forward, just on a kind of brand scale for Hoyoverse. Obviously, Honkai Star Rail
Mm.
was massive, record breaking when it launched in like downloads and stuff, which probably wouldn't have happened without Genshin Impact. And then,
That's a very good point, actually. So yeah, that now they have this kind of engaged community that's probably very willing to try their
mm,
new releases and helps them build up hype amongst consumers and for what it's worth, right? Amongst media as well, that will now be interested in that kind of everything
mm.
that they do. So other news, we're gonna go through these last few very quickly, but I wanted to cover Xbox Game Pass. So the news there is that they've announced a 50% price increase to the subscription. The Xbox Game Pass Ultimate will now cost $29.99 or £23. That is up from $20 or £15 in the
Is
UK.
that monthly?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, that's a month. Right, that should be clear. There's not a year. You have to pay that a month now. Premium, which is formerly standard, that is now $15 a month or £11 a month. It was previously $12 or £10 a month. And then there's Essential, which is $9 or £7 a month. I can't even remember what I subscribed to, but I'll tell you now that this is kind of how warped pricing has become in the industry for quite a few reasons. $22.99 a month is too much. It's way too much money. I'm going to have to cancel it. That's like a year. That's quite a few games for the full price, right? The offer, I've criticized subscriptions in the past. I guess that's now kind of been proven true in a way. But like, technically, the offer is really amazing. You could play all these games, or even just a few games that over a year will cost you less. So I have a few like Age of Empires that I play with friends. I'll just put I've got that, Silk Song, etc. Some of these games aren't even full priced anymore, right? They're not like £70 each. Some of them are a lot less. I think the value is completely gone from Game Pass. Why would I spend? So what is that a year? $360 a year? No, thank you. Actually, I'm not going to spend that. That's ridiculous. I mean, I guess you could argue it's a bit ridiculous before in a way, but it was really good value. I think it's very much a recognition. I've gone through this when there were mass Xbox layoffs before, and just how that strategy has completely failed. So unfortunately, like the Phil Spencer era, I think they recovered their. I was gonna say they recovered their reputation. I guess not, because they've been laying everyone off. I think it will just go down as that the move towards the move towards subscription and play anywhere, which is their latest gambit, it's just all gone wrong. The wheels have completely fallen off. They can't achieve scale, which is the whole point of subscription. And then you gradually raise the price. That's how Netflix did it, or Spotify. Well, that's how they do it, even. And then they could add in ads once at scale to then kind of fuel even further growth. You're never going to get ads in games. This is just. I said it earlier about EA's Access Mobile, Glue Mobile, but like similarly, this is clearly total disaster. Like it's not worked. And now what happens? They stuck with Game Pass, but they're gonna have to. I guess the move is going back to what I was kind of alluding to, which is there's been a lot of price distortion because of Xbox, because of subscription services. And so now I'll look at, I think £70 is a tremendous amount for a game to buy. But now I look at a £50, £60 game, I think, oh, that's really expensive. Not to say it is always expensive for people, but like it gets distorted because you see a subscription. I can kind of get it kind of like in your mind, I can kind of get it for nothing. Or like Steam sales were a big one for price distortion. Oh, I'll just wait for a Steam sale. They've been training you like that for years. And now actually Xbox is like, actually we need to get people to pay full price for this stuff so we can make money and run and have these studios operate without having to lay people off and shut them down. Like that's just the reality that they've come to, especially after you spend, and it's total failure because you've obviously spent all this money to get Call of Duty on the subscription service, and that didn't work. So they've been forced to up the price by 50%. It's not like, oh, we're raising the price by inflation. We're raising it by 5%, 10%, 50%. Insane. I guess to be kind, What you do get is so there's now you get Fortnite Crew, which is like various kind of Fortnite worlds, and you get extra V-Bucks in Fortnite, and you get the Ubisoft Plus Classics collection. In some ways, that's like it's kind of still crazy. It's still good value, but it's just when you just look at your account and the money going out a month, I don't think it's viable for a lot of fans. There will obviously be a hardcore audience that still does this, and they'll get value out of it. But I don't know what direction Microsoft goes in the future. I think Play Anywhere will destroy its hardware business because you just don't need to get an Xbox. Why would you get an Xbox if you could play anywhere? There's no point, especially if crossplay will be an issue between the consoles in the future. So I don't know where Xbox goes from here. I think it's a very bad place. Obviously, I wish them all the best. Hopefully, I guess there'll be a change in leadership at some point, for better or worse. But they need to just change what they're doing. I don't know how they do that. So, Aaron, final story. What you got?
Yes, the last one from me is a bit of a follow-up for our regular listeners about Fire Emblem Shadows, which came out last week. Shadow dropped, Nintendo's first game since 2019 on mobile. So we kind of got some early App Magic estimates on iOS, at least. The game's hardly done anything, really, in its first week. It's not really been a flashy comeback for Nintendo on the platform. Yeah, that suggests that on the App Store, Fire Emblem Shadows has made just $90,000, which, yeah, compared to like Fire Emblem Heroes, which is a very different game, but obviously it's the same IP. Heroes made $8.2 million in its first week on iOS in 2017. So Shadows has done like just over 1% of what Heroes did. And even in the past week, obviously, so Heroes is like an 8-year-old game, and it made 437,000 on iOS in the same time that Shadows has made 90,000, and that should be the hyped up kind of launch week where it does really well. You would hope. So clearly, I think I said last week I don't see this becoming the next Heroes, and now I certainly don't think it's going to. It's a very different kind of direction and monetization approach. At the moment, it's basically all down to whether you want to buy the season pass or not to get one of the legacy characters called Lyn. And kind of Shadow's gimmick is that characters all have kind of a beast form because it's like an Among Us style game where so it's real time instead of turn based, which the main series and Heroes is turn based. And in Shadows, you basically play around where everyone's on the same side, but someone's secretly like evil, and then you have to like vote on who you think it is, and then they get kind of exposed in the second round and turn into like a beast form, basically. So like Lyn turns into a centaur, so like half human, half horse. But so basically, if you want to play as Lyn, you need to buy the season pass, or otherwise you can basically do everything for free at the minute. Whereas like Heroes out the gate, it was a gacha, had legacy characters from across the whole franchise. It makes sense why it's so different at the moment.
I'm going to make it a hat trick of stories where I say the word disaster. I mean, I guess there's a caveat, but like, if I look, so there is Google Play estimates now.
Okay.
And they're only been running for a few days, which to me suggests that, which I think you say in the story maybe, it's like it was so low they didn't really get picked. They didn't generate estimates. You have to be pretty low to not make any estimates. There's some other market intelligence nonsense that people might have heard on the show before, Kings, etc., etc. I won't go into all that now. So there's also other reasons why it might not show. But I think in this case, it generally is like it just didn't do anything. So now it's showed up since 29th, and it's made net revenue like nearly 10k. And then I'm just trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out what's happening. Did they just throw it out? They made it and they decided, let's just put it out.
Yeah, like
to die. So that's why. So it wasn't just shadow dropping as an exciting thing. They just put it out to
try
die.
and like make their money back. Or even if
they'll never make the money back, whatever they put in.
I wouldn't be surprised if if they keep adding, like slowly add legacy characters to Shadows just so that they have an excuse to make their new versions in Heroes and then make the money from those designs there. Which I don't think that's a great strategy, but as I say, at least
it's not doing anything now.
Yeah, where's it going to be?
really. And the revenue on iOS as by the way, is tanked, right? The estimates for net, I know we were talking gross profit, but for net, so I can't figure it out off the fly. But it's 15K, it was peak, and last one was one and a
Mm,
half thousand in a day. And so, I mean, it's possible they haven't really even bothered turning on like the UA, but then, you've made the decision to release it globally. Wouldn't you just start that straight
mm,
away? And from the downloads it has generated, maybe they have been doing UA and it's still tanked, but from the downloads they have made, the revenue is still pretty small at
mm,
the moment and declining, which is not what you want. So I feel like for DNA, obviously, had a massive success with uh, Pokemon TCG Pocket, like amazing, amazing, amazing success. Fire Emblem Heroes, like you said, was a big success for Nintendo. This doesn't look like the one.
mm.
I don't think current performance, unless something drastically changes, it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it has like a lot.
Yeah, like it feels like it just needs a total monetization overhaul, really. Because, like, as you say, the spending's kind of fallen off a cliff. But I guess if, like, day one you were like, yeah, I'll buy the Lin season pass, well, like, those players have done that now, and there's nothing else to buy. So,
It does. It is just like they had a really good thing going with Fire Emblem Heroes specifically because, as you were saying, they actually leaned into the monetization of a
mm,
mobile game, but did it in such a way that I think fans and new players are like enjoyed it. Right, it works for that experience. It's a good game. It's people willing to pay, and all those lessons they've learned, just unlearn
mm,
them, release this. It's totally possible that for some reason they've just decided to go ahead and launch it, test it a bit, and then they'll open up the UA with some changes, and they think it will do really well. At the moment, there is no evidence to suggest that this will happen. It's only been a week, but you want a stronger launch than this, for sure. Right, that brings us to the end of the week of mobile games. Thank you very much, Aaron, for being on the show, as always.
yeah, thank you. Good to be here. It's 2 weeks in a row, I think now.
2 weeks in a row, I know. It's crazy, crazy, crazy times. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening. Hopefully, I'll see you in Helsinki. If not, I'll see you soon, and we'll be back on the show next week. So have a great weekend. See you soon. Goodbye.